can I do to make it last? Looking back, how time has passed. It all happened so fast, never planned to make it past. Now I'm 25 and crash backlash when I'm writing on the paper. Wanna make it last forever, something that I never had.
All I see is black roses. All I see is black roses.
Haters wanna talk in the dark, don't know what to do when the bullets hitting hard from the heart. Cause
they said this lasts forever. They said this lasts forever. I hope it lasts forever and ever and ever.
What can I do to make it last? Looking back, how time has passed. It all happened so fast, never planned to make it past. Now I'm 25 and crash backlash when I'm writing on a paper. Wanna make it last forever, something that I never had. My bad, didn't mean to make you think about what put me on the brink, but I just wanna be a dad one day. Wonder could it happen someday? I had dreams, but seems ever since I was a kid they wanna take it all the way. Never got a chance to say, now I'm speaking what I prayed. If I died, wouldn't really make a difference. If I hadn't went and spit it, this is what I had to say. We black roses, lost, stuck, living broken, homeless. Time goes by and the heart grows cold. That I once had then, but then nobody seemed to notice. Tired of feeling hopeless, knowing that I'm not alone. The reason why I wrote this. Every night I feel the pain, but can't speak about it through the many. Cause the people think you weak and you've been through, but they don't see what you've been through. Leave it all behind, I wish I could just pretend to. But every time I close my eyes, I'm just reminded of the time. And sometimes I wanna die, and I'm sorry if that offends you. But if I had a place at all that I can go crawl, need an angel, so I'm praying and I'm asking God to send you. Somebody calling this an SOS, cause I really can't promise that I got much left. Said I'm flopping, they be watching while I'm falling down the steps. Think the hardest part is that my heart has not been kept. All the women that I slept with kept it.
All I see is black roses. All I see is black roses.
haters wanna talk in the dark, don't know what to do when the bullets hitting hard from the heart. Cause
They said this lasts forever. They said this lasts forever. I hope it lasts forever and ever and ever.
What can you do when all the love's gone? Meaningless when you get brought up in the drug zone. My greatest memories are the smallest things that left a big impression on just what I ought to be. Thank God I got to see, overcame so many things. Got a smile much brighter, got a heart that wants to sing. All my life wanna take the roads less traveled and have all the basic tools that I need to survive all amongst the fools I once was. Now I'm changing all my angry views, hope you change yours too. Or should they die just cause they ain't got a clue? No actions speak louder than words. Now what you gonna do if this world was yours? I wanna know if it's love or wars. Would you care for the poor, leave them scarred anymore? The black sheep ain't the norm, and that's what they wanna call them, always soaring. Ain't no love they've been ignoring, no remorse will not that form. No loyalty was showing, how he finally got a grip. This time he did it on his own and found a life but not a home yet. So on through the dark, hitting hard like the bullets in the park. In the drunk yard, I'm steady looking at the clock, cause I know there's not a lot. Wishing I could put back all the petals that we lost. Wishing we could take a walk and just squash all the years that we lost. It's hard from the heart, find a way I can restart. Heart hurts, been so long dragging in the dirt. You kicked me when I was down, that's the reason that I'm sending shots. Hope you know that I miss you and that I never meant to diss you. And gotta tell me truth hurts more than anything now. All the best is what I wish you.
All I see is black roses. All I see is black roses.
haters wanna talk in the dark, don't know what to do when the bullets hitting hard from the heart. Cause
They said this lasts forever. They said this lasts forever. I hope it lasts forever and ever and ever. All I see is black roses. All I see is black roses.
haters wanna talk in the dark, don't know what to do when the bullets hitting hard from the heart. Cause
They said this lasts forever. They said this lasts forever. I hope it lasts forever and ever and ever.
This right here is for all the dreamers once again, you know? Had dreams that I made come true, cause I believed in myself's what I want for you. Not saying that I'm better, I'm just saying that I did it. Telling you the only truth I know from what I lived in was just a kid when I started smoking reefer. Go to class hot thinking I'm brighter than the teacher, or I could teach her. I couldn't stay focused, had bigger plans, felt trapped in the moment. Like I had no friends who saw what I saw then. Why they always called me but I could never call them. When shit popped off I was on my own then. Now we're gonna answer but we'll blow it up my phone when you need something. True colors been shown then. Some snitched on me, guess I really didn't know then. then learned one deep, now it's more than just a slogan. I got big dreams, now I'm more than just a dope. I got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. They got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. You got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. She got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. We got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. They got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. You got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. She got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. We speaking. I kept on riding, y'all. Really the only way I kept on fighting, y'all. All is the temptation and the drive for y'all to have more songs so you can vibe along. I sit and ride along the highway, getting blunted. Every choice I made, guess I did it how I wanted. Wouldn't sit right if I'd have tried to run from it. Can only try to describe how I feel about the subject. I really feel that it's my destiny, but I control my life and demons got the best of me. I tell myself I gotta stop this obsessing, stop making music and trying to be the next best thing. Made too many mistakes, so I just don't fit. But then I feel it in my heart, so I just don't quit. I met with the labels, just wanna know the budget. Albums on deck, but they're looking for just one hit. I lost faith, my girl died in the crash. She believed in me the most, wonder how long will this pain last. Gotta let it go, now I gotta find peace. Been living nightmares, gotta look inside and find out this is still my dream. Crazy lines for crazy times. They got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. She got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. She got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. We got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. They got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. He got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. She got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. We got dreams. Who am I kidding? No, I gotta keep living. I'm not in it for the millions, now I'm in it for the children. Pain, I'm hearing it from my hometown of Syria. Fleeing for a better life, so why they fearing you? Every day I can't believe what I'm seeing. You can't deny, we are all human beings, but it's known today, and we're hoping that you see it. It's really not the way that the media perceives it and tries to force feed it. Corporations profiting from war, now they're running out of oil, so they're out to get more. It's disastrous what's been happening. Religious war started, let the love and compassion win. Most victims and deaths are just citizens, bombs on the innocent, and this war nobody wins. We've gotta find a way to overthrow the government, to end up like the Germans in the war they might plunge us in. Look inside and you'll know wrong from right. It's in my sight, but I just gotta make it home tonight. We need peace, lost dreams in hysteria. It's not what it seems being made in America. I got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. They got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. He got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. She got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. We got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. They got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. He got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. She got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. We got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. They got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. He got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. She got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. I got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. They got dreams, crazy lines for crazy times. He got dreams, crazy lines for crazy lines. She got dreams. We speaking.
Microphone check 1 2. Welcome everybody. We're back with another live stream. Crazy lines for crazy times indeed. Once again, March 31st, 2026, and what an interesting time we're living in. We got boots on the ground. Nothing too crazy has popped off yet, but it's still just heartbreaking knowing that they're sending our American soldiers in to fight this war on behalf of this, this ridiculous, occupation to fight these people's battles, and they're not even sending their own in. It's absurd. We got Colonel Douglas McGregor on Daniel Deep Dive, and he made some great points. I love how he just lays it out. He's actually saying what needs to be said, and that I can really appreciate. So many people just kind of beat around the bush, and it's ridiculous. But Colonel Douglas McGregor really tells it how it is, and I just want to jump right into this. It's about 21 minutes into the interview we had today with Daniel Davis. Again, when he speaks, I listen. I don't really pay attention to any of the mainstream media, and he's just a voice of truth in a world full of bullshit. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I shared this to a few people today, and I figured we'll go ahead and start the stream off with this tonight. Him talking about us fighting on behalf of Israel.
Even things that have no military utility. Can we safely conclude that no one cares about the law of warfare anymore, and that there are no war crimes in practice?
Remember, as Secretary Higgs has said quite recently, this is a war for Israel against Iran. The Israelis regard this as a war for their existence. The Iranians regard this as a war for their existence. since we are supporting Israel and doing effectively whatever Israel wants us to do in this war, we have taken on the Israeli mentality, targeting philosophy, and approach to war. And if you want to know what the Israeli approach to war is, you have to look at Gaza, look at South Lebanon. In fact, I would say that the Israeli approach at this point is to create imitation Gazas all over the region, and that includes Iran. If Iran can be turned into a Gaza or subjected to Gazification, and that's the price of victory, that's acceptable to the Israelis. That's acceptable to their lobby in the United States and to the Zionist billionaires who are pressuring Trump to fight this war. Now, I would hope that we have somebody left in Washington with some degree of character and backbone to stand up and say, look, this is not an existential war for us. And to be blunt, we've already done more than we should have done. And if this is not enough, so be it. But we should cease fire, because the larger global implications are horrifying, as I tried to point out at the beginning.
Now, let me ask you on the morality of war, because you can argue certainly with a lot.
Colonel Douglas McGregor saying we should cease fire immediately. Someone who's been in the trenches, been to wars, led battles, just so rich in knowledge and just a wealth of information. And that's his advice: is cease fire, negotiate, bring an end to this madness, basically, and stop fighting this war for Israel.
Out of fact.
And Daniel Davis, leading up to that, he asked him this question because a reporter had asked, Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as some of the other leaders, about their strategy in attacking civilian infrastructure and whatnot. And they really beat around the bush, kind of try to answer it like a lawyer, and are clearly throwing all of rules of war out of the window. And it's pretty much like the Wild West out here. The Geneva Convention, all this stuff has just been disregarded. The Constitution's being trampled on. It's madness.
That at the state level, nobody seems to really care about any kind of laws of war. Certainly nobody's going to hold us accountable, either inside or outside of our government. But about the troops, I remember my first combat experience was under you and several others in Desert Storm, and in the preparation for us to go, even from Saudi Arabia, before we launched into fighting the Iraqi divisions, you guys told us, our leaders, that there's the law of war we have to follow. That we can't shoot prisoners, we can't do all this stuff, and we told us we have to do the right thing, and that imbued us with this moral oughtness that we have to fight hard, but we also have to fight fair. I mean, that's what we had going in there. But if you take away that, and even at the top level, there's no concern about doing what's right. I mean, are you concerned that may trickle down into the troops, and then even at the tactical level, they may also loosen up the laws of tactical warfare?
Well, this in every war that lasts for longer than a few weeks, you end up dehumanizing your opponent. We demonize the opponent in any case before we go in, and you can listen to President Trump reading from Netanyahu talking points about how terrible Iran is. And unfortunately, lots of people in the United States have ingested this garbage, and they repeat it ad nauseum. So I try to tell people, Iran has changed quite a bit in the last 47 years. It is by no means the same state or the same society that it was 47 years ago. But nobody wants to go there. Instead, you've thoroughly demonized the opponent. When you demonize the opponent, you end up dehumanizing them, particularly when you go into action. When you lose soldiers, and you may or may not remember that we did lose Sergeant Muller, who was in a Bradley and had 5 or 6 other people wounded. But when he was killed, people emotionally, particularly in his troop, were furious. They were angry, and they became immediately interested in payback. In other words, we'll kill all of these people in front of us. And I had to deal with that, in February 26, with officers as well who did not want to stop killing. They wanted to continue killing when it was perfectly obvious to me, since we couldn't move, we were restricted from moving, that we had no choice but to stop firing and allow whoever was still out there to live. But there were a lot of people who opposed that. And this is human nature. So that means that, first of all, wars should be kept short if you can do so. They should be fought for limited objectives, not unlimited purposes. Right now, we're in a war that should be limited by the objectives, but it's not. It's a war for the destruction of Iran on behalf of the Israeli state and its agents in the United States, period.
Woo. I'm going to have to play that one back again.
By the objectives, but it's not. It's a war for the destruction of Iran on behalf of the Israeli state and its
A war for the destruction of Iran on behalf of the Israeli state
agents in the United States,
and its
period.
agents in the United States, period.
That's what this is about. The average American doesn't completely grasp that, but more and more Americans are figuring it out. But again, unless you get a lot of Americans killed, no one's going to pay much attention. And so the objective is to, whatever you do, don't take heavy casualties. And remember, this is the myth of air power. It's sort of sex without consequences. Yeah, go in, bomb, nobody can touch us, and we get away free.
I believe here he drops some historical facts about the amount of casualties we had in World War II trying to exert superior dominance through the air, and it didn't really work out in our favor.
Well, that hasn't worked that well this time around, and I think it's not going to work well in the future. I think more and more our manned aircraft are going to be vulnerable. But having said all of that, for the moment, we're still believers in this.
Yeah, if it's not coming up, he mentioned it earlier when he was talking about fighting the Germans and trying to win through the air.
Myth, and as long as that is preserved, we're going to continue to do stupid things, and that includes this war, which doesn't need to be fought. Never needed to be fought, certainly not by us under any circumstances.
Right.
Couldn't agree with you more. And now I want to take a look for a minute at the American fighting man component of this, because too often they're just kind of dismissed almost as like this caricature of this noble steed kind of thing, that, you know, there's this hero and that they all love to die for their country or something like that, instead of individual human beings. Secretary Hegseth this morning tried to address that as well. And I would like your view on this on the backside of this video, because one of the other things that was really driven into us, whether this turned out to be right or not, is subject to debate. But at the time we went in Desert Storm, we were told that the president of the United States, that this is the right thing to do. He had assembled this huge coalition. So many people were with us because we said Saddam Hussein had invaded another country. They were at risk of cutting off oil, which could cause catastrophe for the entire world, not just the region, to our own country. And we had to stop this madman. So we believed in what we were doing. Now then, as you just correctly pointed out, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out we shouldn't be fighting this war at all. And so in terms of the fighting man, this morning, Secretary Hegseth tried to address that. Now, I'm sorry, the volume's a little bit low on this, but listen to how he's trying to justify the mission and to tell the guys what they're doing matters.
Missiles and drones, and know what a world looks like, what the world would look like if Iran had the most dangerous weapons in the world, a nuclear weapon. As President Trump has said time and time again for years, and in this administration, Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb, and they won't. These troops, they want to finish this fight for their kids and their grandkids. This is about history. This is about legacy. Success matters. And because of this president and these Americans, we're closer than ever before to winning.
Yeah,
President
that's enough
Trump
right there,
is doing
Gary.
what no other-
We're not close to anywhere to winning anything like that. But do you think that's going to resonate from the Secretary of Defense to the troops down there, that you're fighting for your future and they can't get a nuclear weapon or nobody would be safe, when every piece of intelligence from our government said there was no nuclear weapons program? We had obliterated and no effort had been made to revive it. So none of that can be true. How does that affect the guys fighting at the front, especially those who may have to go in on the ground?
Well, there are two sides to this particular coin. First of all, there were lots of us at the time in the immediate aftermath of World War II who were extremely concerned about the Rosenbergs and their Confederates in the FDR administration that saw to it that Stalin ended up with the formula or the secrets to the atomic bomb. And when the atomic bomb was exploded by the Soviets, people were genuinely and justifiably very afraid. And subsequently, you had people try to convince Truman and then later on Eisenhower that the solution was to launch a preemptive nuclear strike on the Soviet Union. And, they both declined because they refused to see exclusively the demonized personality as representing the entire population of the Soviet Union. We went through this in the 70s with Richard Nixon. In meetings with Brezhnev, Brezhnev actually suggested to him that we and the Soviets should jointly launch a nuclear strike on China's nuclear development facilities. And again, Nixon declined, said, no, I don't believe in that. Preemptive war is not a good idea. And effectively, what we've done now to Iran is preemptively attacked Iran on the assumption that this was going to prevent them from developing a nuclear weapon. In fact, the failure of these preemptive operations, I think, will lead to the point in time when the Iranians actually develop and field their own nuclear deterrent to prevent us and anybody else from at some point attacking them for the same reasons that Pakistan and India also developed their weapons. So I don't think that logic holds up. Now, when you get down to the person, and I can't speak for the pilots because they're in a different sphere of activity from us. But if you're on the ground, the best way to stay alive in combat is to kill the enemy before he has a chance to kill you. And I said that repeatedly, and I meant it. When you understand that, you have to understand that there will be mistakes, that people will be killed that you probably didn't intend to kill. But when you've got thousands of soldiers and Marines who are trying to do what you ask them to do, and at the same time also avoid being unnecessarily killed, you're going to have those mistakes. But I don't think that means that everybody goes in with the intention of killing everything that shows up in front of them. That's not necessarily the case. But the longer the war lasts, the more blood that is spilled, the more fighting and killing that occurs, the more likely people involved in this are to take the position, let's just annihilate them and get this over with. Of course, that's always an illusion. No one can annihilate anybody. That was tried during World War II by multiple combatants and belligerents. But that kind of mentality takes over. And again, you have people that are called commissioned officers. Their job is to hold this in check, to contain these emotions. Because if the officer can't do that, then you're going to get the worst possible numbers of crimes. Not because the people that are fighting are bad. They know that the way to stay alive is to kill the enemy first. It's that simple.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunately, I totally get that at the tip of the spear. That's the only thing you can do. It would be irrational to do anything less than that. But man, on the backside, if some of your mates die in a war that should never have been fought, that's going to be a little harder to deal with.
And you and I know that happens. That eventually happens. I mean, back in 1991, I was disappointed because I thought, if nothing else, we should send a force to Baghdad and demand the surrender of Saddam Hussein and anybody else with him. Put this place under a new set of generals, and then we can go home. But we didn't do that.
I do remember that, as a matter of fact. Well, let's take a look at where we are. This one, you have laid out basically how there is no military solution to this. We can't force the Strait of Hormuz open. Ground troops are going to do nothing but basically get a lot of Americans killed. That's not enough to put any pressure on the regime anyway. Well, one wonders if that is starting to get through to the president, because this is the Wall Street Journal reporting today that Trump tells the aides he's willing to end the war without reopening the Strait of Hormuz. It says in recent days, according to this article, Trump and his aides assessed that a mission to pry open Hormuz would push the conflict well beyond the timeline of his 4 to 6 weeks. He decided that the U.S. should achieve its main goals of hobbling Iran's navy and its missile stocks, hobbling, not destroying, and winding down current hostilities while pressuring Tehran diplomatically to resume the free flow of trade. Obviously, that's, I mean, when I read that, I'm like, well, that's zero chance. And then they addressed that if that fails, Washington would press allies in Europe and the Gulf to take the lead on reopening the straits. And it seems that this morning that is something he's doing, because these are two true sources he posted within 10 minutes. He said, first of all the countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the U.S. We have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Go to
If we have plenty, then why are gas prices skyrocketing here in America? Why is there fear that there may be food shortages in America then? That doesn't make any sense.
to the strait and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part's done. Go get your oil. And then 10 minutes later, he turns to France. The country of France wouldn't let planes headed to Israel, loaded up with military supplies, fly over French territory. France has been very unhelpful with respect to the butcher of Iran, who has successfully has been eliminated. USA will remember. So what do you make of what this allegedly says about where President Trump's mind is right now? I mean, if he can't open the strait, if he can't defeat the government militarily, what other options does he have?
Well, keep in mind that Iran did not shut down the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. Lloyd's of London did that. The underwriters who provide insurance for the vessels that travel in and out of the Persian Gulf, they would not underwrite any shipping because they're not going to put, themselves at risk of total bankruptcy in a war zone. So that needs to be understood. That's why the whole notion of mining the strait or putting in barriers and so forth, that was never necessary. The Iranians understood that. Now, as far as the free flow of trade is concerned, that's going to resume. In fact, some people would argue it's begun to resume. Unfortunately, not at the pre-war levels, although that eventually over many months can change. But the Iranians are simply saying if you are U.S. or Israeli flagged ships, if you are in league with them, if you're supporting them, then we're not going to let you go through the strait. It's very simple. Everybody else is being pretty much told you can do it, but you have to buy your oil in yuan. Now, if he's going to go ahead and destroy the Iranian infrastructure for the oil system, if you will, the energy system, and the desalination plants, then I think that pretty much puts to bed any chance whatsoever for the Gulf to recover over many, many, many years. It's just not going to happen. So these are foolish observations or statements from someone who doesn't really understand what's going on. Secondly, the British and the French, I think, at some point are going to tell us to stuff it where the sun doesn't shine. Harold Macmillan, whom I regarded as a very good British prime minister, had the foresight and the wisdom to keep Britain out of Vietnam. We went to Harold Macmillan and said, we want you to join us in Vietnam. I said, forget it. That has nothing to do with NATO. NATO was always formed as a defensive alliance to defend and protect the people of Europe from communism. That's what it was about. We've been trying to instrumentalize the alliance as a set of vassal states who, on demand from Washington, provide troops for whatever we want them to do. I mean, this is sort of like the Roman Empire. It's ridiculous. It's the kind of thing Napoleon Bonaparte did to the countries that he controlled. And so he would have tens of thousands of Germans and Poles and others fighting for France. This is ridiculous. This is 21st century. That's not going to happen. They're not going to participate. They have no incentive to do so. And this sort of diplomacy by X is catastrophic. You end up offending people unnecessarily and you make yourself look ridiculous. And I think, these opening statements about the Strait of Hormuz, demonstrate he doesn't really understand what he's dealing with.
But what do you think about the possibility? I mean, this would, in one sense, be pretty Trump-like to just say, "Yeah, I don't want to keep going with this." It's
There's some diehard Trump supporters out here trying to do damage control on X, like this guy right here, Gunther Eagleman, saying Trump was right again. More oil tankers are cruising through the Strait of Hormuz right now, exactly like President Trump said would happen during negotiations with Iran. The so-called experts laughed and doubted him. Now, I saw one of this earlier, one of these similar things. Yeah, and Grok corrects it, saying no, that's not true. As of right now, March 31st, 2026, only three ships are transiting the Strait of Hormuz, with just 5 in the last 24 hours, 8% of normal daily traffic. Iran's selective restrictions and tolls amid the conflict have blocked most tankers. Traffic's been sharply down since late February. More specifically, what I saw earlier was that all of this traffic that we're seeing coming in and out of here are Chinese ships for the most part. As we know, they're only working. They're only keeping American and American allies out of the Strait of Hormuz at this point. And as Colonel Douglas McGregor says, it's not even that they necessarily closed it to them. It's that the insurance behind those ships isn't willing to risk sending them in there. So that's interesting and pretty comical. These people are trying to do damage control.
It's too costly.
And they're just completely ignoring the fact that we shouldn't even be fighting this war in the first place, right?
To keep pursuing, a military solution here. So I'll basically just kind of walk away and just toss it off to the Europeans to try to figure out. I mean, do you think that's a possibility he could do? And what would that look like?
Well, I think it's a very strong possibility that we ultimately simply pack up our gear and pull out. I mean, I keep telling people, what did we do after 8 years in Vietnam? We left. It took another 2 years after we left for the regime to completely fall apart under assault from the north. But the point is, we had no good ideas, we had no solutions. We squandered American blood and treasure stupidly. There was never an attainable objective. And as a result, we looked ridiculous. But it was, for various reasons, not taken as evidence for our weakness and stupidity. And of course, we did recover from it. Now, what we're doing at the moment is we're beginning to look feckless because we have thrown everything that we possibly can, short of a nuclear weapon, against the Iranians, and it hasn't worked. So if you're sitting anywhere in the world, whether it's Brazil or China or Russia or anywhere else, you're looking at this and saying, oh, this is interesting. Clearly, we can defend ourselves against this. It's not as bad as we thought. So I think we're beginning to look weak, which is what happened to the British after the Boer War. It's not a good thing for us at all. But again, I don't know that President Trump is thinking in those terms. If he's just watching videos that show explosions and things burning without understanding the larger strategic implications, I don't see anything good happening in the short run. But over the long run, if he goes ahead and does what I think he's going to do, we won't accomplish our objectives at all. It'll get worse, and we'll just leave.
And that's absurd. I mean, especially if he recognizes that this is beyond military means, we can't win this. Then one would hope he would come to that conclusion in action and not send anybody on the ground into a mission which would only cause casualties and then not die. I've unfortunately seen that play out even in Afghanistan. I saw, so I don't have a lot of hopes for that. But it's not only the guys on the ground. And I want to take a look at something that's not being given a lot of consideration here, but I know it's something that you pay attention to and wonder what your thoughts are here. This graphic here is showing, because of these attacks like the E-3 the other day that got blown up in Prince Sultan Air Base and some of the other aircraft that we've already lost, we've had to move our troops way back. So right now, you are having to fly American airplanes, rather, on these bombing runs, some from continental United States, some from Europe, et cetera. And you can see here, this is the number of sorties and where they've come from RAF Fairford in the UK, from the United States, continental United States. That is putting a tremendous amount of wear and tear on our airframes and our air crews. And there's lots of evidence that says, for every 1 hour of flight time in combat, especially, you have to have like 8 to 10 hours of maintenance time. And when you have to fly that much, what do you have any concerns about the stress that's putting on the air crews as well as the aircraft themselves?
That's a good point.
Well, remember, during World War II, we and the RAF together lost 18,000 bombers trying to penetrate German air defenses.
Yep, that's where he brings up what I was saying earlier. 18,000. Play that back.
Lost 18,000
air crews as well as the aircraft themselves.
Well, remember, during World War II, we and the RAF together lost 18,000 bombers trying to penetrate German air defenses. That's why you had such high casualties in the 8th Air Force, where we lost 58,000 men killed, almost twice the number of Americans in uniform killed that were lost in the Marine Corps in the Pacific. Now, this is a different world today. We spend a lot more money on individual bombers, billions of dollars, and we can't afford to put these bombers at risk. So we've got to be careful where we position them and how we use them. So I think there are constraints on our ability to fully exploit high altitude bombing. They're not profound yet, but they're headed in that direction. I think we have to understand something else. President Trump said this war is going to end whenever he wants it to end. And I think he's telling you by implication that when he decides it's enough, he's going to pull out and leave. And I think the consequences strategically will be extremely negative. We will be finished in the Middle East. I think we're finished there now, frankly. All of these Sykes-Picot states left over from the Versailles Treaty in 1919 are going to vanish. I think there are going to be internal revolutions in the Arab world to deal with these, well, let's put it this way, the Epstein class in the Arab world that rules them. And ultimately, I think we're going to go in, but it's going to be very tough for the reasons that you outlined. Naval forces, and for that matter, ground forces or air forces, all have had to move a great distance away from where they want to go. And sometimes I have to remind people, when we landed at Normandy, we landed several hundred miles from the German border. If we had tried to land on the German coast, the whole thing would have been destroyed instantly. And by the time we got there in June of 1944, 82% of the German armed forces were on the Eastern Front, and we weren't really facing a very significant opposing force. The Germans were able to put 2 planes in the air against 5,000 of our fighters. So we're in a different position here. This is an enemy that is winning the missile war. This is the enemy that has built missile dominance. And we've had a hell of a time with it, and I don't think we can change it. We'll see. But my fear is it will go in again, do pretty much what we did the first time around, and simultaneously try to move Marines and airborne infantry, Rangers, special forces, infiltrate these forces into the region. And again, the problem I have with infiltrating, can it be done? Perhaps. But once they're in there and you want to get them out, how do you get them out? Once they're in there, how do you feed them? How do you clothe them? How do you get them water? All of these problems. So, you're presenting the right picture for everybody strategically, what a challenge this is. And I'm sure that President Trump is being told these things, but I think we're desperate. And I think our desperation will overwhelm our common sense, and we'll go ahead with it.
Well, we don't have
our desperation or Israel's desperation and forced hand.
A lot of good track record of not doing what you said there. Let me ask you a question. We talked to you a number of times before this war started. We asked you a bunch of things about what we could have done. You said a lot of things about in the years past about what President Trump should have done when he first came into office about the Russia-Ukraine war, which obviously could have saved unbelievable amounts of resources for the United States had he done that, but he didn't. He didn't take your advice here, and he did start this war. What can he do now? If you were advising President Trump right now, with all the things that have happened, the war we've got, not the war we wanted, and the situation we've gotten ourselves into, and the fact that Iran now controls the Strait of Hormuz and there's nothing we can do militarily to stop it, what advice would you give the President Trump to do right now?
Two things. First of all, right up front, I would urge him to go back and look at something that Robert Work, a former Marine officer who eventually became the Deputy Secretary of Defense under Obama, said in 2010. And this was something he wrote. He said, the Navy Marine team will never contemplate literal maneuver, in other words, maneuver near the coast of any opponent, until an enemy's battle network capable of firing dense salvos of guided weapons, read missiles of all types and kinds and drones, is suppressed. Consequently, the initial phase of any joint theater entry operation will require achieving air, sea, undersea, and overall battle network superiority in the quote unquote amphibious objective area. Now, the question is, can we do that? That's what I can't answer. I don't think we can, but it may be that we have now found the magic sauce that will allow us to go back into Iran, systematically root out all the missile launchers and underground missile cities and so forth. I don't know. I think it's unlikely. So that's the first part of the answer. The second part of the answer is, it's time to admit that we don't have a military solution to the problem. And I would urge him to make that statement publicly and say that we would rather settle this, short of war in some setting and ask for countries that are willing to do so to mediate. Now, that's something he's not going to want to do, Dan. This is a man for whom everything is mortgaged to vanity. He and his persona are at the center of everything. This is now his great war. Now, we all know it's because of Israel, and he's trying to utterly destroy Iran on behalf of Israel. But the truth is, he's now taken this on board. In other words, he's adopted the Israeli mentality, is not just Israeli talking points, the Israeli way of war. And that's unfortunate, but that would be the other thing that I would urge him to do, because if you understand what Robert Work meant in 2010, you recognize the enormous challenge that we confront today in the Persian Gulf, then he might step back and say, well, we've got to find another way, and that way will not be with military power. But I don't think we're there yet. And of course, he doesn't seem to care in the least what the economic consequences are. I think his war is driving us into a very deep recession. And the rest of the world is going to face all sorts of problems. It might even be financial, economic depression accompanied by famine in many places because of the fertilizer problem. So that's the best I can do, Dan. I don't know what else to offer.
Yeah, well, there's not any good answers. We'll just start with that. Last question I got for you today, though, is to kind of zoom back to the 30,000-foot level. When you see all these reports in the last week, just in the last 1 week, about how the U.S. and Israel are both running out of interceptor missiles, Pac 3, the Arrow 2, Arrow 3 systems interceptors are running dangerously low. THAAD systems are interceptors running very low, extremely expensive. Tomahawk cruise missiles, depending on which report you look at, somewhere between 650 and 850 were used in the first 20 some odd days of this war. We don't know how many are continuing to be used, but the bottom line is our inventories of all of these critical weapon systems, interceptors at the Pac 3 level, the THAAD, and then offensive missiles with the standoff with JASSMs and also with Tomahawks are at really low numbers because of everything we've given to Ukraine, everything we've given to Israel since 2023, and now we're expending here. What does this do to our ability to defend our global requirements if, God forbid, we should have some unexpected conflict with either China in the South China Sea or Russia in Europe?
Well, I know that we've expended more than 1,000 JASSM missiles, that is, Joint Air to Surface Standoff Missile, at a cost of $1.5 million apiece. Some people think it's going to take a year or more to replenish these stocks. I'm sure we've come up with some additional JASSMs. How many, I don't know. But these standoff attack weapons are the weapons of choice because then you don't have to fly into the enemy airspace and put yourself at risk of being shot down. Uh, I don't see any evidence that the Russians or the Chinese, or for that matter, anybody else wants to attack us. You have to remember, we started this war. Oh, I know the Netanyahu talking points. This began a long time ago. Well, if you want to talk to the Iranians, they'll take you back to '53 and Mossadegh's removal from power and the installation of the Shah and his regime, and all the terrible things that ensued from that. I don't think that holds up. We absolutely attacked this. We launched a preemptive war on the assumption that it would work and it would work quickly. That's all failed. So you have a choice. You can double down or you can try to get out. I don't think he has seriously tried to get out because I think the Israeli agenda is our agenda, and that agenda demands Iran's destruction. And if we go into the recession that I think is coming, and the rest of the world faces at least a bad recession, if not worse, we're going to be held accountable by the world for the terrible things that we've done that simply did not work.
Well, I certainly hope that you're right there. I mean, there's no reason why China would want to attack us, or certainly not Russia, either one. But I just fear that if we do get into a war unexpectedly, we're going to be in a real world of hurt. And the last
Well,
part is,
Dan, I would just argue right now that there will be no war with us unless we start it. That's what people need to understand. They've been fed this sort of Fox News diet of enemies everywhere. We have to have this enormous armed forces and be prepared to strike and bomb and attack everyone everywhere all the time. That's not true. Our biggest problems from a national security standpoint, they're south of the border. They come in the form of drug cartels, many of whom are extremely well armed now, as we have discussed before, with drones and cruise missiles and a lot of things that people don't realize. That's very dangerous. That's where our focus ought to be. But we're not focused there. We're focused elsewhere. But, the Chinese and this Taiwan thing, this is ridiculous. To try and fight China over Taiwan is sheer lunacy.
yes,
It would make the Persian Gulf look like an afternoon outing. Same thing for Russia. I mean, we have not put forces into Western Ukraine. God help us if we do. That would be fatally stupid. Again, nobody seems to understand something we've talked about before. We are not a continental land power anywhere but in the Western Hemisphere. So when things go badly for us, we sail away, we drive away, and we fly away. We don't live in the Eastern Hemisphere. But the people we're harming all live in the Eastern Hemisphere. That's the problem.
that is the problem. Well, let's hope that we follow that advice. And even if just because of constraints, we don't do any more stupid things, and maybe that will be a silver lining to all this. But in any case, we really appreciate you giving us your good advice here. And man, people should go to McGregorWarrior.substack.com for some great Substack work here. You do a lot of good work here, a lot of things that are very relevant to what's happening right now. People should go there to see more of Doug McGregor. You don't have to wait for him on this show. Thanks, Doug, for coming on. We always appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
And we appreciate you guys too. We'll see you on the next episode. Now, let me not mention here real quick, we have Colonel Jacques coming on at 1:15 p.m. today. And then at 2 o'clock, we have back with us again Scott Ritter, who always has some very interesting observations to make. And they'll see talk about what's going on with this war from a couple of different perspectives, and promise you don't want to miss either one of those. We'll see you then.
Absolutely. That was a great point he made of our major threats coming from south of the border and what we should be focusing on. And, it's becoming apparent that our administration isn't serving its people, its citizens. We've been hijacked, clearly. And that's why I wanted to share that, because Colonel Douglas McGregor really drives that home, and I really appreciate that. He's saying what needs to be said again. Nick Fuentes here saying, pray for Iran. Iran right now is fighting for all of humanity. They really are, in a way, they're fighting for us, because if Iran falls, it means Israel controls the Middle East. It's not Iran they're after. Israel is after you. Iran is just in the way. Let's give it a listen.
That's all we can do. Pray for Iran. Pray for the designs of the Jews to fail. That's all we could do. Iran is fighting for the whole world right now. And don't get me wrong, I'm not praying for more casualties. I want that to stop. I want the United States to be finished. But Iran right now is fighting for all of humanity. They really are. In a way, they're fighting for us. Because if Iran falls, it means Israel controls the entire Middle East. And the power that Iran exercises over the Strait, over the Red Sea, that's what Israel wants. That's what Israel's playing for. They want that power over our government. They want that power over the Gulf. They want that power over all the trade, all the commerce, all the supply chains, everything that goes through the Middle East. They want all of it. And never forget, they are a nuclear-armed intelligence superpower with a fifth column in the United States, Europe, Russia. Increasingly, they're spreading their tentacles even into Asia. If Iran can't shut them down, nobody can. Trump can't or won't. The United States can't. Russia can't. Europe can't. It is literally Iran, a country that has turned itself into a fortress for this eventuality. They're fighting for all of us. Iran is fighting for all the Goyim. Make no mistake about it. If we, the United States, were challenging Israel the way Iran is, they would be murdering us too. They'd be bombing our schools. They'd be assassinating our leaders. They'd be killing our soldiers. They'd be doing the same thing. Everyone that stands in their way, they give the Gaza treatment. Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Iran. It's not Iran they're after. Israel is after you. Iran is just in the way. Never forget that. Israel is not after Iran and the Ayatollah. Israel is after you. It's just Iran that is in the way. So say some prayers for the Islamic Republic of Iran. We don't agree on everything, but we agree on one thing. The Zionist occupation regime has to be stopped. And that's enough for me.
Amen to that. Iran right now is fighting for all of humanity. Why the Epstein elite really hate Iran. The fate of pedophiles in Iran, they are hanged. USA, they become presidents. France, they marry the president. Yep. Where's the lie? I've had many questions about Fuentes, but this is spot on. The rabbis put it in video. The patterns are undeniable. They have Congress, they have the White House, they have our money, they have our military for this war. Where would they stop? Yep.
Pray for Iran. Pray for the...
Very true. And Sean Strickland's, giving a shout out to the blue collar people here. Trump completely betrayed the blue collar guys with Iran. What has this cost the average guy? Gas, shipping, inflation, 1,000 to 2,000. How much more by the time this is done? Rich get richer and poor get poorer. Complete betrayal. Yep. Yeah, this is accurate right here. President we voted for, president we got, indeed. There it is. Yeah, and Scott Ritter goes off in this one. He's a war veteran, combat veteran, and he just pours his heart out in this this interview here. I don't think I have time to watch the whole thing. Let's see if I can jump in at a good point.
He's not telling the truth. He's implying that this is a plan. There is no plan, McKenzie, and you know there is no plan because